Thousands of Palestinians in Israel and the West Bank are gearing up to protest against Israel's occupation of their territories. The annual Land Day demonstrations commemorate the Israeli government's seizure 27 years ago of a large chunk of Arab land, which resulted in deadly rallies. Well, we can now cross live to our correspondent, Irina Galushko, who is at a checkpoint where the Palestinian-Israeli border and tensions were running high. Well, Irina, tell us, judging by your gear, of course, we can say that there could be some violence where you are now. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, you can say that the demonstrations have essentially started, and they have begun last night, actually on Friday, in some cities in the West Bank, in the Palestinian territories. We are expecting more massive show of discontent. This has been traditionally the day for Palestinians to protest what they call an unjust treatment of them and of the way Israel is taking up land, as they say. Now, the protesters have been out on the streets demanding that Israel stop the intensification of the Israeli settlements in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip, and also have called for the release of political prisoners, of the Palestinian political prisoners. Now, the protests are continuing today. We're at Kalandia checkpoint, which is on the border between Jerusalem and Ramallah. We're expecting we're expecting large crowds. In fact, you may not be able to see it really well behind me because of the massive traffic jam that is happening, but it's happening largely because of the crowd of protesters that are coming closer to the Israeli checkpoint. And we do have some of the border police here who were just earlier throwing stun grenades, one of which exploded under my feet. So we do have tires burning again. Unfortunately, you cannot see this, but I can try and move to the side. So now I'm just afraid we're going to see the cars. Anyways, basically, Palestinians are unhappy, extremely unhappy with the Israeli settlements, of which there are more than 200 in the Palestinian territories, compared to the fact that there's just roughly over 3 million Palestinians living in the West Bank. Compare that to the number of Israeli settlements in the very same area, which is 500,000. You can understand the frustration of the Palestinian people. So we're expecting major demonstrations, protests, and they did get violent last year. At least one person was killed in the Gaza Strip. Hundreds were injured in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip again. So we're in for a rather hot day in the Palestinian territories today.
Well, Irina, as we know, the settlement issue has long been at the center of the Israeli and Palestinian conflict mediated by the international players. So where do we stand now in terms of the resolution of the conflict?
We're standing exactly where we were a year before, you can say. We're still standing at the crossroads and kind of facing a dead end. Of course, we have President Barack Obama, who was just in Israel and Palestine very recently, in fact, last week, and he did say that the Israeli settlements are essentially impeding the peace process, the Israeli-Palestine peaceful solution. And yet, it doesn't seem he was expected to exert some pressure on the Israeli government. That did not happen, unfortunately for many. Of course, there was also a UN report from last year which said that essentially the Israeli settlements and the way Israel is treating Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza Strip is a severe violation of Palestinians' human rights. They're essentially being displaced off their lands. They are being treated violently. Their crops are being destroyed and their land is being taken away. However, Israel chose to ignore that report by the UN and has not made any move. In fact, over the past 10 years, there has been an increase in the Israeli settlements, especially intensifying under the government of Benjamin Netanyahu since 2009.
All right, Irina, thanks very much for bringing us the situation on the ground there, our correspondent, Irina Galushko.